All right, guys. Thank you all for waiting. I don't know who was out at. You were out there, yeah. I know that there's some questions about violent crime where we're at this year, and some other questions about those issues around the city. I want to make myself available, and I think you had a question about.
Yeah, I mean, just regarding writing the story about the
Yeah.
helicopter unveiling. And my question was, yes, you guys were investigating the crash that happened, but were you taking also a look at the fleet for it to review any safety protocol policies? If so, did you find anything?
Yeah, I can tell you that first we're still waiting for hopefully for our friends at the NTSB to actually issue a report. Unfortunately, because of COVID, their process have been hampered because of COVID, and they've slowed way down. And so we've looked internally, and I don't think that we found anything that is problematic. Having said that, I don't think we'll be able to make our final decisions and our final assessments until we hear from NTSB. I am very happy, though, that we were able to secure. Look at our fleet's aging. It's an older fleet, and quite honestly, one of the challenges with our fleet, when you think about our city, it's such a spread out city, about 677 square miles, with a hot environment in the summer. And you know, when you have a heat, it creates challenges for a lift for our aircraft. Then you look at the issues that we deal with. The aircraft that we have today, other than the 412, really is not capable of all the different missions. And so today was a huge step forward in getting aircraft that is, I think, better suited for this challenging environment. But most importantly, an aircraft that can actually help us perform the multi-mission capabilities that we need. Search and rescue, especially with the flood waters, that it's not if they come, but when they come again, and people that need to be rescued. If you think about the port infrastructure, the energy infrastructure in our region, in our city, it's huge. And so we'll have to wait to see to finalize that.
Have you ruled out at least that the gunfire from that?
Yeah, the gunfire was ruled out. You know that was one of the things we did. We did make some arrests, and my recollection was some folks were prosecuted as a result of they were shooting at helicopters after that incident, but we did rule out gunfire as a cause of the crash. So, you know, we're police officers. We're not experts on aviation in terms of investigating crashes. So we're going to have to wait for the NTSB. I have not gotten an update from the NTSB, but they had put us on notice. It's going to be delayed because of COVID.
Did they give you like a ballpark?
No, we'll reach out again. We'll reach out again. Now, the scenes of administration may be different players too coming. I don't know. So we'll reach out. So anything else on the aircraft?
Three quick questions on the aircraft.
Yeah.
Number one, have you been up in it yet?
No, not yet.
Number two, how long before it's actually, I know they're getting trained, when do you anticipate it to actually be operational?
I think I can say it's operational if needed. As a matter of fact, my recollection is when we were out, Chief Finn and I were out during in Southeast on MLK Day, and part of their training is actually flying, and so it actually helped support that day our operation down south.
And its flight hours, will it be immediately thrusted as, like, say, if this is a pitching rotation, you have your 1, 2, 3, will it immediately be thrusted to the one spot in terms of the flight rotations, or are you going to take it in slowly and let the other ones still have multiple?
I want to take it in slowly because I want to try. Remember that this is the only aircraft we have other than the 412 for patrol. We don't want to use it as much for patrol purposes only because we have aircraft that can meet that. Even though those aircraft, again, that platform is they're getting up there in age. Not that we won't use it for patrol, but I want to try to save some of the flight hours for the other capabilities that it has that only one other aircraft can do, and that's the 412.
There's one more.
Yeah.
The aircraft that crashed in 2019, what is the status of that aircraft? Is it
Oh,
still in the fleet?
that aircraft is still being held for NTSB it's still in evidence for the NTSB to actually be able to continue with their investigation.
Okay, you're talking about the one from July 2019.
Yeah, 75 Foxtrot, yes.
Okay.
No, that was May. You talking about May?
No, I'm talking about the 2019, the first one where Jason Knox survived. He was the passenger.
Oh, I believe that one might be back in service. I have to check. I don't remember.
Okay.
If you need an answer to that, don't quote me. I have to check on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll follow up, Vic. Vic, we'll follow up.
Huh?
Case, we'll follow up.
What happened? What are you laughing at? Mario, what did I miss? Okay.
On the topic of violent crimes,
Yeah.
I think by our count we're up to 32 rather. What's your,
No, I think it's,
the numbers are correct?
what was the number this morning, 30?
It was 30 this morning.
It's 30 this morning. Yeah, which is,
Time
it,
last year?
Yes.
it's an increase again from last year. This is, I was actually on the phone with the San Antonio Police Chief this morning. I've been on the phone with the LA Police Chief, New York Commissioner. It's a phenomenon we're seeing nationwide. And quite frankly, we've got a lot of work to do in society. After many decades in the United States of historically low violent crime, including murders, we're now into year 2 of a significant increase. And that's something that should be of concern to all Houstonians, all Texans, and quite frankly, all Americans, because it's going on in all the major cities. One of the things that we need to work on is we've got to get our court systems up and running. We cannot afford. I think Sheriff Gonzalez was in the media yesterday on the news. I don't know which one of y'all covered it. I think I might have read it only in the, I might have read it in the Chronicle, or it was Fox News that I read it. I don't remember where I saw it. But he's said the courts have to get up and running. I mean, look at, the media's running, the police department's running, the airports are running, the schools are running, everything's running, and the courts are at a snail's pace, not just here, but across the country. We have got to get our criminal justice system up and running. We cannot afford to have close to 2,000 charged murderers here and hundreds and thousands more across the country running free, committing more crimes, taking 3 to 5 years to even bring them to trial. We can't afford to have, you know, our criminal justice system basically, you know, working at 15 RPM. It's just not working. It is a recipe for disaster. So that's an area we have to work at. Let me just finish the other things we're doing. We have to look at doing our job better, because we always want to do better. Chief Slinkard and Chief Finner have worked very diligently to put additional resources in homicide. We ended up the year last year, we went from, I believe, a 47% or 48% clearance rate to a 62% clearance rate. I think it was about a 15%, so it's 40%, 62%. That's huge from 19 to 20. We are moving more detectives into homicide to continue that upward motion. Chief Finner's working diligently, moving and changing the hours of our DRT teams. We have quite a few people on the differential response teams that are not working when the crimes are happening. And we're going to be adjusting those schedules and other schedules. So we have to continue to look internally to be able to squeeze as much as we can of what we call 5,300 police officers that hasn't grown in 20 years. We have to do our part. But ultimately, we all have to do our part. We need our community to work with us. We need them to continue to be vigilant and to actually report crime. I got word this morning of an individual who I won't say their name, but they were the victim of a purse snatching. And I heard about it, and come to find out they didn't report it. That's not going to help us. We have got to report crime so we can respond and hopefully get enough evidence to take people into custody. The other thing that we need to really consider is when the police department, if we can make and tie you and have evidence that you've committed 16 robberies and 3 aggravated assaults, we need you to be charged with 16 robberies and 3 aggravated assaults. Because if we only charge you with the highest and 1 count, then that impacts bond and impacts a lot of issues. So there's a lot of going on. I can say that I've been talking with Kim Ogwin, the sheriff, and we're going to have conversations to see how we can all come together in our county, you know, because even though it's happening everywhere, what we care about is our city and our county, to see how we can all come together to look at how we can be more strategic in terms of trying to impact violent crime. Because these are real lives we're talking about. We're talking about young people being shot. We're talking about people being robbed. We're talking about people being robbed in their garages. And and it should be a matter for concern for all Houstonians. I know it is for me. It keeps me up at night. I know it keeps him up. I know it keeps him up. And we all need to do better. Anything else on that over there?
Chief, the murder rate was going down, your department credit, it was going down at the end
Yeah.
of last year, especially from about that second week in December until New Year's Eve. But the pace that we've seen, as Sion just touched upon, since January the 1st, has gone upward. What do you attribute that uptick to?
Well, that's something we're looking at. I could tell you that one of the things that helped late last year is that Mayor Turner gave us additional overtime dollars, and we were able to put more feet and boots out on the ground. But you know that our city is cash strapped. And it's only going to get worse. Our budget, because of COVID, is very strained. I'm talking about the city's budgets and across the country. I'm hopeful that the new administration in D.C. and the new Congress will actually provide additional funding to the cities to deal with violent crime. Secondly, you know, the governor likes to talk about the big liberal cities and crime, but one of the things I would think that they would do is, I'm from the California Highway Patrol. Guess who took responsibility to patrol all state freeways and all state highways? That's where I started my career. The Los Angeles Police Department didn't patrol the freeway system. The state took responsibility for the highway system, the freeway system. It would be very helpful, instead of the rhetoric, that the state patrol all freeways in the state of Texas. It's state property. Respond for service, enforce the transportation code, investigate crashes, and I think if we did that, then we can relieve a lot of our resources. We spend a lot of time on our freeways trying to write tickets to keep people safe because people die in the city, enforcing DWI laws in the freeway system, the state freeway system, responding to criminal offenses in the state freeway system, and investigating crashes on the state's freeway system. It's state of Texas. Just like he talks about homelessness all the time. A lot of the homeless live on state property, Mr. Governor. So why don't you start dealing with state issues before you start casting aspersions at the cities? Because where do they live? On whose property? On state property. So if we can get the state to deal with the state issues, we can free up our local resources to work on violent crime. We really all need to work together. And I think that this helicopter that we saw today was a great example of state leaders, with the help of Senator Whitmire and all of our delegation here, and Senator Alvarado and the members of the House, Senator Nelson, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and ultimately Governor Abbott. That shows collaboration, that we all work together to make our state safer. Yep. Am I making sense on that? If we can just get that help, that would be helpful for us.
You said around that you're cash strapped. Have you guys used up all that overtime from October last year?
I'd have to look at where we're at. I'll look it up. I don't have the number with me. But cash strap, Mario, is because of the economic downturn. The city's budget every year, because of the revenue cap, is always starts at a deficit. I don't know how the mayor and council do it, and city finance. Every year, they start at $100 million. That's before COVID. I'm really worried about what we're going to see this year because of the economic impact of COVID. So if we're already cash strapped, I'm really worried about what's going to happen to the city budget. And when we impact other parts of the city operation, that has an impact. When, if libraries, kids can't go to libraries, guess where they're going to be? On the streets. It all has an impact. So we're hopeful, again, that Congress will help the cities that cannot, our mayors cannot, they're not able to just print cash and to go into deficit spending. That just doesn't happen that way. So we need a second additional help. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so could you go back to one thing you mentioned before about additional resources to homicide?
I can't hear you.
Could you talk a little bit more specifically about the resources you promised to the homicide division and where that stands?
It's ongoing. I don't know. We don't have the numbers yet. I know interviews are taking place. A lot of those resources are coming from burglary, B&T, and Chief Slinkard, if you'd like to speak to it, you can. I'll let Chief Slinkard speak to it because he's spearheading that.
So ongoing. So initially, for several reasons. One, to impact the clearance rate in a positive way, and also give more time for detectives to have on the cases that they were receiving. As you know, towards the end of the year, we started putting more additional resources in homicide. Now, it's a challenge, especially when you're a department where your staffing is relatively stagnant and is where it has been for many years, right? Those resources have to come from somewhere, right? So to try to not adversely impact patrol and other places, you know, you have to be very strategic and thoughtful about where you're going to pull those resources from. But our initial goal is to get 20 additional investigators in homicide. We're not there yet on all 20. And then, of course, you have to adjust shifts and adjust for the workload and things like that. So we will keep that effort going until we get to all 20. We're probably about halfway there right now, which is having an impact on the caseload. However, right, when you have an increase in the homicides as we have and as we've discussed and as you all have brought up today, that's just additional cases, right? I mean, you know, if that number were to increase, we might have to look and adjust that investigator number again. It just depends. I mean, when you go from having between 200 to 300 homicides a year, somewhere in that range, between 200 to 300, and then you jump up in one year like we saw last year, and we're still hoping that will be somewhat of an anomaly, and you jump up to 400, you're going to have to shift resources eventually to try to clear those cases and move them along, and that's what we're doing. And I think we're seeing some positive impact on that. Like the chief mentioned, when you count those cases where we have open warrants for those cases, meaning we believe that we have solved the case and we have open warrants or somebody, or we're waiting on a grand jury decision, we're up to a 62% clearance rate. And so, but we can't count that as a UCR clearance until somebody's actually in custody.
Chief, what do you attribute that improvement from specifically? Was it just getting more detectives who could handle it, or was it, you know?
It's a combination. It's a combination of all of the above. You know, one of the big issues as well is a focus on getting people in custody for warrants that we have been able to locate, where we've done the investigation. We have an open warrant out for that suspect, and for whatever reason they have not yet been in custody, haven't been able to find them, and then having a dedicated focus on getting those people in custody, which we did heavily at the end of last year. I think it's paying a big impact, and we're starting to clear some of those cases.
Sorry, Chief is distracting me.
That's okay.
Let's see, I don't know, you got it.
I have a question for the chief.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to get into hard, you won't get that, you have a statement, but let's talk about the process. How surprised were you that this process resulted in 6 more indictments on Monday?
Well, the process, let's be clear, the charges other than the one on Gallegos has to do with overtime. Our focus, again, was on what occurred in terms of Harding Street. So would I be surprised that they've charged people with allegedly stealing overtime, per se? That would not surprise me. I've seen that happen in law enforcement, including departments I've run at. We've actually fired people here before. So that does not surprise me. But like I said yesterday, that now that they're done with that, we will open our administrative internal affairs investigation. We'll be meeting hopefully here sometime this week with the DA's office so we can get going on that. And one of the things that Kim and I, DA Ogg and I discussed yesterday, is getting our teams together to see how we can make our own processes and systems more robust to, if in fact that occurred, that there was theft of overtime hypothetically, how do we make our own checks and balances process systems on the overtime more robust? But ultimately we're dealing with professional police officers, and if everyone does their role, we have a better outcome. So we'll be doing that after we get the internal investigation done.
Chief, that sort of issue, you mentioned there have been officers who have run afoul of that in the past, but, you know, your narcotics audit, the vice audit, the gang audit, and these indictments from July, sort of all raised this sort of recurring issue of oversight, supervision, and then, you know, these shortcomings. So I guess I'm just a little, if you could, why announce this investigation now? Why didn't you do it in July?
Because the investigation into the overtime was ongoing. It's a criminal investigation that takes precedence. I think I told you that already on a text. I'm not going to start doing things internally that may hamper the DA's investigation. That's something that we always try to be sensitive of in terms of that investigation.
Are you going to be looking in this administrative probe at just the people who've already been?
That's what we're going to start, but we're also going to do, based on what we find there, we'll be doing some auditing beyond. And that auditing will be a review that will either find malfeasance or it won't, and we'll take it from there. Just keep in mind that some of the things that we found during our other review, the folks that were involved in not doing their jobs are no longer members of the department. It just precluded us from taking administrative action. They retired or moved on with their lives before we were able to take action. But we will take a look at all that as we move forward. I've already said everything. I've already said everything I want to say about who. How do I view Rusty Harding, or how do I view Gallegos? I'm not going to retract any statement I've made about Gallegos. I've already made that statement, didn't I? I said I'm not retracting any statement I made about Gallegos.
Chief, can we talk about street racing? Got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Full questions. Last night there was an incident, if you're familiar with it, street racing.
Yeah, with the folks that got shot at and their car was struck or something with the street takeover. Yes.
Can you talk about that?
It wasn't yesterday. It was actually, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago. Like, what's happening is that these street racers, if you watched Tacoma, these people watched the Fast and the Furious. That's why we've put together the work force, the strike team with the DPS and the county and us to deal with aggressive driving, and also part of that is the street racers. That, quite frankly, there is a gang element that goes with this. There's a criminal element. Racing is a crime, and one of the things that we need to talk about with the county that we will be talking about, and I'll be talking to Ed Gonzalez, is we need to start booking these people on these low-level misdemeanors. I mean, we're chasing them down, we arrest them, and they won't take bookings. That's a problem. There have to be consequences when we catch people to the behavior. Because with no consequences, they're not going to fear doing what they're doing. And so that's going to take an all-hands-on approach, and that's why I'm saying that Kim, myself, the sheriff, and other police executives are getting together hopefully sometime in the next week or two, to come up on, we're going to have to do something in terms of being able to arrest these people, impound their cars, and at least get them to the JPC and processed, because there have to be consequences. It's a real problem.
Last night there was an incident.
Excuse me? What was that? You got to stay out of the rain, man.
WD-40 on
Last night there was a street racing incident where an innocent couple got shot at because they got caught up in the middle of it. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
That was a couple days ago. I just talked about it. Yeah.
They're asking, what should you do if you get caught up in the middle of that? If you're innocent, you're not involved in it.
I would keep your doors locked and get out of there as soon as you can. And if you can, videotape what's going on so we have evidence to go after these folks that are out there acting the fool. But at the end of the day, the communities are eyes and ears. A lot of these people they talk on social media, they make their plans. If you're aware that a street takeover is being planned, please call us. Let us know ahead of time so we can have undercover assets and other assets in the area and aircraft in the area and all the other things we want to do to be able to identify these people and hold them accountable. Please, the community's the eyes and ears. And one of the things that really concerns all of us as it relates to violent crime in our criminal justice system in this country, not just Harris County, but in this country, that has come to a streaking halt, is we've got to put ourselves in the shoes of a witness that witnesses a violent crime, a murder or an aggravated robbery or an aggravated assault, dealing especially where the suspects are in the neighborhood known to be violent gang members. our ability to solve these things, if we don't get this system up and running, is going to go by the wayside. Because people are going to be afraid to talk and cooperate with the police if they know the murder suspects are going to go in one door, out the other, and then then they're going to have 3 years running around free, 3 to 5 years, maybe retaliate. Fear is a great motivator, and we've got to create an environment where the criminals are afraid and not victims and witnesses. We've got to restart our criminal justice system across the country. Anything else? A couple more, because I got to get going to my next one.
The suspect
I got to go to Spanish.
Shooting the sheriff deputy last night
Was on bond.
had a long history.
Who was on bond? Why is a deputy getting shot chasing a guy that was already out with a long history, reportedly, of violence, was already out on a bond for violence, and we have a deputy getting shot at? Not shot at, getting shot. Why is he out? And you know what? I challenged the media. You all wanted to talk to me. What did I do? I came in here. I challenged the media to stay after people responsible here and across the country for criminal justice and all aspects of criminal justice. Thank God that deputy's alive. But I think that Ed Gonzalez, who are you with?
I'm the bull camera. I'm with KHOU-TV.
Oh, okay. Was that Fox asking that?
No,
It was?
yes. it was
Yeah.
Fox.
They're doing a good job of staying after that story. I'll just leave it at that. Anything else? En español, por favor, because I got to get going.
Yeah, I have one more cool from Fox. Homeland Security issued a new advisory, terror advisory, in terms of transition, any threats in Houston?
We don't have any specific threats, but I think you're talking about the threat of domestic terrorism. The threat of homegrown terrorism is what you're talking about, and we know that the FBI's threat assessment has indicated and has come up with the assessment that the right-wing extremists, militia extremists, hate group extremists are the greatest threat to our homeland. And I'm assuming that that's what they're talking about. That just came out again, a new threat briefing today earlier this week. Yes, ma'am. En español. En español, no?
No, I was going to ask you that.
Oh, wait a minute. You don't know en español? No. I gotta go to Spanish over here. There's a lady over here who's been wanting to talk in Spanish. I'll come back to you.
En español, ¿podría repetir la información de usted a qué atribuye el incremento de los homicidios?
Mire, hemos, desgraciadamente, allá, thanks, Mara, be careful. El año pasado, desgraciadamente, después de muchos años en este país, a los homicidios y el crimen violento ha bajado. El año pasado subió bastante en esta ciudad y en todas las ciudades grandes, la gran mayoría de las ciudades grandes en este país. Eso es algo que debe darle a la comunidad un poco de temor. Porque hoy, el día 26 estamos hoy, ¿no? El día 26, 27, ¿no? Hoy estamos el día 27 de enero, tenemos 30 homicidios. En el 2019, el día 27 de enero teníamos 15. Así que ha subido bastante. Estamos viendo, yo estaba hablando con el jefe de la policía de San Antonio esta mañana, el jefe de la policía de Los Ángeles, el comisionado de la policía de Nueva York, todos mis colegas, estamos viendo que el sistema de justicia de las cortes ha parado en este país. No están teniendo juicios, no están llevando a cuenta a los sospechosos. Y en esta ciudad, en este condado, tenemos casi 2,000 personas acusadas con cargas de homicidio que no han ido que están corriendo en las calles sin juicio. Y necesitamos que, para poder combatir el crimen, tenemos que llevar a cuenta los delincuentes violentos y tenemos que tener las cortes. Nosotros estamos abiertos, ustedes están abiertos, bibliotecas están abiertas, los aeropuertos están abiertos. Pregunte por qué las cortes no están trabajando. Porque ellos son personas que son responsables por la seguridad pública y las cortes tienen que abrir en este país. Tienen que abrir, no podemos seguir así. porque la cosa se va a poner peor. Nosotros estamos en nuestra parte. El jefe Slinkard está haciendo un gran esfuerzo para mover más detectivos a la división de las investigaciones de homicidio. Y el año pasado, del 2020 al 2019, comparamos los casos que pudimos encontrar el sospechoso, subió del 47% en 2019 a 62%, 15% subió. Y ahora estamos poniendo más investigadores. Así que nosotros estamos en nuestra parte. El jefe Finner está cambiando los horarios de servicio a los agentes del DRT, porque están trabajando por la mañana, cuando no está pasando nada, lo va a hacer trabajar por la tarde. Así que nosotros estamos en nuestra parte, porque todos tenemos su responsabilidad, pero todo tiene que ser su trabajo y también las cortes. ¿Ok?
En cuanto al incidente de ayer con el oficial, ¿esto es resultado de
Mira, acuérdese cómo va a ser. Ahí tenemos nuestros colegas del Harris County Sheriff. Van a arrestar a un sospechoso, que es un sospechoso con una historia de cometer violencia. Y le mete un tiro a un policía. Una persona que iba a estar ya estado presa y no en la calle así, con esa libertad. La comunidad tiene que hablar, tiene que demandar que las cortes empiecen a hacer su trabajo, no solamente aquí, pero en el país entero, porque ese es una fenómena que está pasando en el país entero. Anything else in English? Let me go over here real quick. Hey, let me go over here real quick. Go ahead.
The Homeland Security terrorism that you talked about a minute ago, you mentioned before that our region, not really our city, is a hotspot for...
Well, hey, when our region, we're part of the region, right? Yeah. And so it is a hot spot for militia groups and right-wing extremism. In terms, and here's what really, this is the world we've come to. If I mention right wing, people think I'm attacking conservatives. Absolutely not. You know, being a conservative is not being a right wing militia. It's not being progressive is not being Antifa. These are extremists on both ends of the spectrum. So I just want to make sure people understand, we're not talking about conservative Americans. We're not talking about people who right of center. We're talking people on the extreme. They're anarchists on the left, and just they don't support this country the way it is right now. And so we are a hotbed, and we have to be vigilant and pay attention to what's going on out there. And when you hear people talking crazy, well, we know that as of 6 January that crazy gets turned into action very quickly. And when we hear things that people are planning or threatening to do, we've got to take those threats seriously and report them.
Yeah, and it mentions Texas specifically in that bulletin. I was wondering, does it change your procedure? Do you see a bulletin like that from Homeland Security?
No, I think that when we see those bulletins, it further supports our assessment. I think I've been in Texas since 2007, and for some reason I've been talking about the threat. I remember, and for some reason they're finally catching up to what we've already known. I mean, I'll never forget. I can't remember the suspect's name right now, but he shot up my city in Austin on Thanksgiving, the Friday morning after Thanksgiving dinner. I get a call at 2:30 in the morning that a guy has shot at downtown hundreds of rounds from a fully automatic assault rifle, tried to burn down the Mexican consulate, shot up the federal court, the brand new federal courthouse in Austin. Then he went in front of our headquarters, and God forbid, I'm sorry, but I don't remember his name right now, and he just gets out of his van and just lights up my headquarters right there on, if you've seen it on East 7th, lights it up. 118 rounds he shot into our headquarters, missed the head of one of my detectives, a homicide detective on the second floor by about that much. And then a sergeant, mounted sergeant, was trying to put away 2 horses, holding the 2 horses from 312 feet away. He sees the mounted sergeant start shooting at him, and this mounted sergeant shot one shot. It ricocheted off of the suspect's van and struck the suspect right in the heart. And I told him, if you think you took that shot and there wasn't some angels, because and killed him. That man he was a member of the Phineas priesthood. Phineas priesthood, look it up, a right-wing extremist group. We had Oklahoma City bombing with Timothy McVeigh, right-wing extremist. It is a real threat. And, you know, again, when we're talking about right-wing extremists, we're not talking about conservatives. We're not talking about Christians. We're talking about what it is, extreme. Left-wing extremists. They're extremists. They're not progressive. They're anarchists. They're Antifa. That's not progressive. Go ahead. One more, because I got to get going, guys.
Real quick, so on the same topic, one of the heads of the Texas Oath Keepers,
Yeah.
a guy named John Shirley, who you may know, is a former Houston police officer. And I'm just wondering, you know, with the whole bit about Officer Pham, you know, what steps have you taken to try to like look at this issue within your own ranks? And how concerned would you be if you found out that you had members who were in the Oath Keepers, the 3%ers, or groups like that?
I think
What
we,
actions would you take?
I don't deal in hypotheticals, but if you're part of groups that we can determine to be hate groups or subversive groups or groups that are planning the overtake of the government or anything of that nature, we'll do everything we can to fire you. I mean, is there any doubt in your mind?
Well,
So, one,
but my
two,
question specifically, and for example, like the group, the Oath Keepers, that's sort of a group that sort of aligned itself with law enforcement. in the past.
well, they've hijacked, look, let me just tell you something. What really angers me is that the thin blue line's been hijacked by racists. It's been hijacked by militia groups. It's been hijacked. And you know what they did with those thin blue line flags? To the Capitol Police officers? They beat the hell out of them. So they're real supportive when you wear this uniform, as long as you let them engage in mayhem and engage in sedition. And you know what? Like we said during the George Floyd protests, we made it real clear in this city. Do not confuse kindness for weakness. We facilitated. We were all out there. You guys saw us out there for days. But when people started breaking stuff, we took decisive immediate action.
So would you allow Houston police officers to be, are they allowed to be in the Oath?
I don't know of anybody that's in the Oath Keepers, but if it's brought to my attention, we'd have to investigate it. You know, here's the problem, St. John, with the lack of a domestic terrorism, a true, robust domestic terrorism statutes in this country from a federal standpoint, is that what's First Amendment and what's criminal activity, right? And I think that's one of the challenges. The other thing that I've brought up to members of Congress that is a challenge, and I'm talking from a law enforcement perspective, is, you know, technology is a great force multiplier, something that we need more of, but we don't have, but we're working on it. But facial recognition. You know, we had several thousand people attack the nation's capital, reports of police officers, one from here, more than one from here. I think there was another one from San Antonio. And a demand by Congress that we identify every one of them that were there and attacked the Capitol, and they also are demanding that we identify. I sent a letter to the Congress. I don't know if you saw. I got a letter from the Oversight. Did you see it? We tweeted it out. In my role as Major City Chiefs, the Oversight Committee in the House sent me this letter. Well, in the same breath, these are the same people that are saying, oh, no, law enforcement shouldn't be using facial recognition, for God's sakes. Well, you know what? We need to be thoughtful. Everything can be abused. But if we can bring in civil libertarians, and we're working on that through the Major State Chiefs, to bring in the ACLU and other civil liberties groups, bring in criminologists, bring in different stakeholders to come up with a thoughtful policy on the use of facial recognition.
Do you want to use facial recognition?
Yeah, of course we would. Wouldn't you? Okay. You think the person that got shot up, that family, if we had a robust, like they do in England, where they have a robust system of public facing cameras, that if you recall after the attack, well, you may not recall, you're a little youngster, but you guys recall back in the summer of, I don't remember, but if you remember what year it was, maybe 2003, I don't remember. You can Google it. You're good at that, St. John. The attack on the transportation system in London. I want you guys to go back to that. Within a matter of weeks, the London authorities were able to take down that whole organization because they leverage technology. They've got about 40 million CCTVs that they were able to crowdsource and go back and find the people that blew up a subway car inside the subway, some gas. They blew up a double-decker bus. When you look at Boston Marathon, it was technology and the ability to get all of that footage that helped them catch those two guys. Technology that's used for the greater good with a checks and balance should be exploited. It should be used. It should be used and leveraged to keep people safe. Because we're not like NYPD that's got 7 cops on every other block. We've got the same 5,300 cops that we had 20 years ago, covering a city that's grown by 500,000 people with a 53% reduction in our support staff. That doesn't add up. So we got a lot of challenges. I think one of the, right now we're looking at, we're working on using, we have a pilot project going with ShotSpotter that you guys know about. It took me several years to tell them we ain't got the money, but if you want to do, we'd be happy to do a pilot, and that's going on right now. So we got to be thoughtful. The other thing is, I don't have a cell phone, but everybody, including cops that or applicants, that we look at social media when people apply to be a cop. We talk to your neighbors, we talk to your family, we talk to your employers, we talk to your coworkers, we talk to your friends. But more and more people are going onto other platforms that are really part of the dark web that we can't even get access to, even if we have a legal predicate, a criminal predicate, right, with court orders and review, and we can't even get to them because they're in there's the going dark issue. And so we got to really be thoughtful because we're heading in the wrong direction, not just in Houston, but across the country. So if you should go get that letter, you might it might be enlightening for you. It's on my Twitter. That's it. I'm done. Last question.
I got one more real quick question.
Yeah.
So return to this overtime bill. Yeah, I hear Kim Ogg talk about this stuff, and the way she talks about it, it sounds like the world is ending, right? It's like this rot of corruption.
Yeah.
I go into the union hall, and I hear Doug saying, this is paperwork violations, and so I just where do you fall on that? Is this
Well, we didn't do the criminal investigation, so that's why I talked to Kim yesterday. I told her, not, you're done. I knew she was doing an overtime investigation. I fall on if whatever our investigation finds. Look, if she charged them, we've investigated the officer-involved shooting. We did a real thorough investigation. So I've made my statements on that, and I stand. No, but I'm trying to connect the dot here for you. But we didn't investigate the overtime, so now they did that. But a lot of it's about perception, right? What am I trying to create? This big perception, everything's corrupt. Look, I think Kim herself knows that. Do we need to do if in fact our people were stealing overtime? That's a problem. And the stuff that we already found in our audit, I think you guys have known me for 4 years. Do you think those supervisors would have survived and the people that were responsible for actually managing that unit? Everybody's got to do their jobs for things to work. But we have to do, I think, and this is what I talked to Kim about, we have to look to see what lessons are learned, if any, so we can do a better job in terms of our internal systems to be able to capture this stuff. Because we have fired people since I've been here for a lot of things, including one guy that was double dipping on something. And so we got to see how we can do better. I mean, there's a lot of political theater in the world, and I don't think I'm going to participate in it today. Thanks, everybody.